didn't want mass migration in their country. Are they not allowed to have their opinion and vote on that?
I think if you want to be part of the European Union, then yeah, you should probably abide by international laws. Yeah.
It's just like
I think that the European Union should have more.
That's like the fourth or fifth time she's like gone really close with the camera because she has to like Google something, and all of a sudden like, oh, he's right. But what about the trash garbage people that try to come over here with their trash garbage? Like we don't have any system for sorting through who is and who isn't trash garbage, you know? So I don't know if everyone here has already had the time to watch LonerBox's documentary on Lauren Southern. It's kind of like part of the Holy Trinity that's coming out this month. The first one, of course, was LonerBox's, and he was covering the boats. The second one was the one that I just released on youtube.com/the Serfs TV, where you can see the special on Lauren Southern and how she claims that the mass graves in Canada of Indigenous children are a hoax. And then I sought to debunk and disprove that claim. And then the third one that is almost finished is coming out by a third content creator. It is going to be the spiciest of the three. It's going to be quite intense. Who's the third? The third is a secret for now. I don't want to give away their hand, but I can tell you the topic. The topic is the Great Replacement, and I'm sure some of you know the Great Replacement conspiracy theory that Lauren Southern had been spreading with Stefan Molyneux for some time. She claims, of course, that she never actually released the video in time for the shooter to have ever seen it or be inspired by it. It was actually somewhat after, is her official story. And it would really be unfortunate if there was still a ton of direct evidence that refutes that, such as videos produced for other sources that she doesn't have the accessibility to take down. It would be a really unfortunate thing if someone had really effectively trolled the internet, all corners of it, to find as much information as they could, and found a lot of damning evidence. Like, it's going to be something. It's going to be something when it comes out, and that's coming out in a couple weeks. And if that is not enough, if your cup doth not runneth over from all this Lauren Southern content, yesterday, Lauren Southern started watching LonerBox's video on her, and apparently just skipped past like 20 minutes of it, because I don't know, reasons. But then was a little bit upset and obviously wanted to have a conversation with LonerBox, just one-on-one. Out of the blue, even though it was 3 a.m. where he lives. So this is a 3 a.m. LonerBox phone call into the Lauren Southern show that, I kid you not, is just chef's kiss. Normally I don't pre-watch these, but I actually, as soon as LonerBox had tweeted that this had happened, I was like, oh, I gotta see this. And it's something. It's, yeah. Chico, you were sleeping in the most awkward way. I'm gonna have to... Your face is blocked by a USB cord that is necessary. Aw, see? We can't see your cute face. Unless we go like that. There you go. I'm gonna see this dangling cord. It's my headphones. Alright.
Hello. Can you guys hear me?
Hello. Yeah.
Hey, how's it going? All right. Do you have video or are you just voice? I can't tell.
God, those communists are
Big K official.
Hello,
Thank you for the
Mika, sir.
$10.
I am your lord. However, I would like to trade labor. Will you take my monies to play me new single Psycho?
I will do it after this segment. Please remind me if I do not remember. But yes. We'll do it after the segment. Remind me again if I do not remember. I'm prone to that with the ADHD, but I do appreciate the $10.
I do have video, but it's too late. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's all right. How's it going? You're live, by the way.
Yeah, I'm very well. Thanks. How are you?
I'm good. I've only watched the first half of your video, by the way. I still have to watch the second half, so if I don't know all the points you've made, that's why. I will get around to it. But
well, my favorite bit comes next, but that's just
no.
Typical,
Oh no, what's that
That's
one
fine.
about?
The 10 tons of HIV.
Oh,
They used it to bookmark.
the 10 tons of HIV. Okay, well, I will watch the whole thing. But what did you think about my comments?
If you haven't watched LonerBox's video, which again you should, let's just say link in the description kind of thing. It's really funny because that was probably one of the most kind of like there's a lot of, oh shit, Harris Hawk, thank you for the
Get some wireless
$35.
headphones that don't require USB so that we can always see Chico's face.
The problem with me using Bluetooth I've found with my computer is there's a slight delay. Like it's very small, but the difference between what I hear, like it slows everything down. LonerBox's vid is a banger. It is an absolute banger. This part where she's talking about this, oh, and thank you again, Harrissock. I really appreciate the $35. This part where she's basically describing how there was a potential transfer of HIV in clothing is something that just seems so ludicrous. If you even understand like a cursory basic summary of how HIV is capable of infecting humans, the fluids that it needs to be present in, stuff like long story short, if you didn't learn this in like grade, I want to say 7, I think around then, you can't get AIDS from clothing. Just like you can't get AIDS from plates. Like that was a really huge fear during the height of the AIDS crisis when like it was affecting primarily the gay community, and so much fear was put into the fact that that's like where it was like, ew, no, gay, they might have AIDS. Oh no, like a person who's a waiter put the plate down, it might have the AIDS on it. You know, it's like just one drop of sweat is all it takes for the AIDS to be transferred this way.
Commentary on the first half. What are your thoughts on that?
I only caught the last few minutes. I was in like another part of the house doing stuff, but
Okay, no
yeah,
worries.
I was like, I only asked to call because you skipped over the bit where I said that the lead up to the interview.
Yeah,
happened
someone
over
asked
the
me to
phone.
go back,
didn't
and I
pick
did.
the whole. And obviously, I saw that you interviewed. I put that in my video. I show you interviewing panels.
Yeah.
So
like, what did you
yeah,
think
I actually-
went on there? Like, what did you think was happening? Did you think we were like
I just like
faking
okay.
it all?
My well, no, my
Yeah, true,
sister
could be.
is a journalist. I know that people do film stuff after the fact. I just thought the whole like the evidence board and the like the shipping app stuff. And like the porn acting. I just thought that was kind of funny, you know.
But like, you introduced it as Lauren Southern is a lying fuck fake.
Okay, I'm gonna rewind this because it's already popping off. Gets good right from the gates. LonerBox. Wow. I was just utterly surprised. Just like we have gone full circle with Debate Bros. All right. Once they reached like Jackson Hinkle and like infrared, that's when the circle had been complete and the whole thing collapsed into itself like a neutron star of just utter absurdity, right? Because now we just have people where it's just all like, I am the master, you have been destroyed, beta male kind of shit. But LonerBox, with this kind of like very subtle, almost, you know, the British comedy style of what delivery and cadence, it works. It works very, very well. I hope to see more LonerBox.
Thought the whole like the evidence board and the like the shipping app stuff. And like the porn acting. I just thought that was kind of funny, you know.
But like, you introduced it as Lauren Southern is a lying fuck fake journalist.
Well, what I thought was
Hell
Like, you
yeah.
just said you know your sister does
Hell
this, and
yeah.
people set up shots.
Well, they don't
Fuck
build
yeah.
fake evidence boards like 3 weeks later. That's something I think that's maybe limited to the alternative media.
It wasn't a fake evidence board, though. It was just an evidence board that was on the wall that we actually did end up using.
It's so fucking cringe. All of her like setup shots in these things, they're always so cringe. Her acting is so piss poor, and like you just know, like when I was watching the Mass Grave ones over and over, you just know she's like set up a nice camera right here, looking at her on her computer, and then facing the computer and being like, yeah, whoa, I can't believe we're discovering this now. You know, it's amazing.
It was a bit of a prop for sure, but it wasn't like fake.
Okay, I'll take your word. So about Panos' lawyer
Yep.
saying the phrase "we were laundering it."
Yep.
You have the full footage of that, out of interest.
I can get it. Yeah, it's all on hard drives. They would be hard drives in London, not here, since my.
Because I'm just I'm just very intrigued about the idea of a lawyer who would like admit that.
Well, he didn't know it.
money
He
laundering.
didn't. He had no idea he was being recorded. Obviously.
Yeah, but even just speaking to a total stranger as a lawyer, like, you think
Well,
you'd know better.
Of course, there was and I won't lie about this. There's obviously with journalism, and this has happened to me.
I won't lie about this. That's a weird thing to say. I've seen you lie about everything else. Like, what the fuck? By the way, oh man, my pause game today. Twitch, you're missing out. You're missing out. I've said best pause in the game. It's my one thing.
the other way around, where I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I thought this person was actually sympathetic to me. There's a degree of, you have to be like, yes, I'm super sympathetic, otherwise people won't be honest, unfortunately.
Yeah, so what I was thinking with, so is there more clarification off that recording? Because the two big things I felt that were very missing from that interview with the lawyer was no clarifying question. So him following up saying we were laundering it. We don't know if that's him describing the charges, right? Or actually saying.
You know what? I'm gonna ask
money.
I do not have it on my computer here. The hard drives with all of that footage on it. When we were traveling, so we went to Turkey where we had all of our stuff confiscated. That was after our trip to Greece. We were literally mailing hard drives back to London where my editors were throughout our trip. I didn't take any of them home. I was sent edited copies of the film, full transcripts, and usually we would do like, you know how when you open Discord you can do a screen share with editing and watching and cutting, we do that. So I don't own all of the footage on my own hard drive. I have obviously all the final copies, but I can absolutely request and source that if you want more context.
Yeah,
It'll probably take me a minute, but I'm
did you
happy
edit
to do
that video? Did you edit that video?
Yeah, I was part of the editing for sure.
Well,
And it's been like 3 years.
Yeah, I know. I'm not gonna try to put you on the spot or anything.
No. Like, I'm happy to actually source it, because I know for a fact we wouldn't misportray anything to that degree, especially.
Yeah, because in the video, instead of a clarifying question, because again, that is one thing I know that journalists are supposed to do. I'm sure you'd agree. You're supposed to ask because he asks Panos the clarifying question. He asks, "Can I just clarify? You categorically deny the charges." He had to make him say it twice with the question preceding it. Whereas all I hear is, I think it's Kaylin's voice going, "What?" As in, like, just making up, like almost just a grunt. So that's not, there is no clarifying question, and we don't know the lawyer's name.
Yeah, so okay, George was talking to him off to the side. But yeah, I can go and grab the full footage, because I have no doubt in my mind that that is exactly what he said. And you know what? Did you end up going over the Ariel Ricker footage as well in your film, in your little video?
No, I think Jose, the YouTuber, had already covered that to kind of an extent, and it kind of was relevant.
Jose's videos are awesome, by the way. You should go check them out.
Most of my data was specifically around NGOs in the central Mediterranean.
Because it's no secret that, like, these NGOs are often partaking in sketchy activities, especially after talking to Ariel Ricker. She was like, yeah, absolutely. We have people that, you know, go and take jet skis across the water. We call them angels, and they grab people.
Incredibly generic statement.
We
sure.
absolutely are training people how to get refugee status, pretending they're Christian and persecuted, because, as you know, you even mentioned it in your video, Turkey is a refugee safe country.
Yeah, I'm very curious, what country in particular are Christians getting persecuted in that Muslims aren't?
Well, Turkey is majority Islamic, so that's what the claim would be coming from, because it's really difficult, obviously. When I was in Lesbos, there's a place called the...
So, didn't answer, pivoting to anecdote.
And we put footage of it. It's just like hundreds, thousands of life jackets in a pile from people who have just landed on the shore. And in it, you can find people's documents, like partial.
Like, again, just remember, what was the question? Which is the country in which Christians aren't persecuted as much as Muslims? That was the original question. So now we're talking about the life jacket pile.
Burned or thrown away. And typically that's because they've been told by traffickers or by NGOs, you can't have your documentation on you because you can be deported if you have your passport and you've come from, like, a non-refugee country. Or if you've already got refugee status, obviously you're going to be sent back, because it's like, no, you can't country shop. You've already been given safe asylum. What I'm saying is we found.
Will the VOD be saved anywhere after streaming with the Serfs YouTube channel? Yeah, I'll put all the VODs up. I'll do it like all the other YouTube streamers do. I'll have the full VOD bar, so you can check out some of the full VODs, and you can comb through them and find all the parts where I messed up, you know?
Found, like, refugee papers for Turkey in this pile.
Yeah, so what I'm asking about is the thing with the Christians thing, because, like, I know, well, the main refugee countries, I suppose, where there's, like, Christians being persecuted would be Nigeria, right? Because of Boko Haram. That's like the main country where, like, a persecuted Christian under a Muslim regime would come from. But then I don't know why you would have to say you're Christian to prove you're persecuted, because Muslims get persecuted by Boko Haram as well.
Well, no, this is in Turkey. They're claiming in Turkey I face persecution for whatever reason. So this is people coming from Turkey. So they're not necessarily saying it's going to stick, but your chances of getting a refugee status after traveling through Turkey.
Well,
the claim could be like, as a persecuted Christian from X country, I don't feel safe in a majority Muslim country again. I need to come to Europe.
You don't actually need to prove that you don't need to stay in the first safe country you arrive in, though. That's not the law.
So you can country shop? Is that like, can you cite where that comes from?
Well, I'm just saying it's the United Nations Convention on Refugees.
Can you read that? Like, I'd be curious.
Yeah, I'll show. Okay.
See, I think why LonerBox works so well is he's just so fact of the matter. It's just like, it's like having a conversation with someone where the other person isn't there to like have fun or pal around. He's just like, I'm very curious about these things. Like, how did you make this? How did you make this whole project? Like, how do you lie about these kind of things? How have you crafted lies within lies? I need to know.
There is a common misconception. I'll find it. Was it Article 30? My notes for this are fucking enormous.
Because all of the you know, certainly I've gone to the European Union a couple times and spoken to people who are policymakers on this, and that was one of the #1 contentions that was always spoken about by policymakers, was the problem of country shopping.
So within Europe, there is the Dublin regulation, which says you don't have to stay in the first safe country, but it'll probably harm your claim if you do, but that's within Europe.
But that's within Europe,
so that's,
right? So that doesn't include Turkey.
Doesn't include Turkey, and even the thing within Europe, you could say the United Nations still has a problem with that, because the whole logic of saying you don't have to stay in the first safe country is you're just putting a very arbitrary burden on whichever country is next door, right? Like the fact that if the nearest safe country is a country of like 5 million people and they're massively in debt, then it would make sense as an international community to allow people there to move onwards. So that's why there's the idea of safe third countries. And I mentioned this in the video as well, but there's also the whole thing. Yeah, so that's the thing about, I'm trying to find this fucking, where is it?
Because obviously that really does, that's one thing that I spoke to a lot of migrants about when I was on the ground. They were like, man, we didn't film all of it, because obviously a ton of migrants told us like, no, we're not comfortable being on footage, we don't want to be filmed, and we respected that. We really made sure we only filmed people, especially if they were migrating and potentially, you know, escaping a violent regime. In some cases, because I do believe genuine refugees exist within that. Well, I think the majority are typically just migrating for economic reasons. And when we were talking to people off camera that didn't necessarily want to be filmed, they were quite often telling us like, man, like, yeah, we were really screwed over being told we could actually get refugee status in these countries. We were really screwed over being given this false information that we were going to be given somewhere to live, be given asylum, because we're being told we're illegal migrants, especially because the traffickers will tell them to destroy their passports, so they actually have no way to even apply. And to be fair to the governments, how are you supposed to give refugee status to someone who has no ability, isn't from a refugee, you know, designated country, has no ability to prove who they are, and has zero ability to prove what their background is or even their identity.
Yeah, okay, so I covered that as well. Like, there are supposed to be international laws around assisting people who don't have dogs.
Like, the thing is, LonerBox pretty much was incredibly thorough, as he often is, right? And so he's come into this environment now where she's kind of running through all the points that he's actually already dissected in his video, because again, she skipped over a large part of it and hadn't finished watching it before they started doing this as well.
Documents, because there can actually be a few reasons. Like, some of it can be, you can be from a country that is absolutely riddled with human rights abuses, but you can be going to a country like Italy where they consider Libya a safe country, which it absolutely isn't. So okay. Yeah, like you can have, but again, like that's just more of like kind of a separate issue. I can send you that law of, but yeah, that is like something that I covered a little bit as well. But I've sent you the link there. The article in the UN law is contracting states shall not impose penalties on account of their illegal entry or presence on refugees who coming directly from a territory where their life or freedom was threatened. So that's why the term coming directly gets misconstrued, but then there are separate UN articles where they explain that coming directly is based on whether or not they claimed asylum and got settled. So if they claimed asylum and got settled in Turkey, and then destroyed that and tried to go somewhere else, that would be a crime.
Okay,
that
so
would be,
yeah.
But if they just got to Turkey and then decided to move afterwards before claiming asylum, that's fine.
Okay, so I see what you mean there, and that actually tends to be a big problem. Is they won't actually apply, not as in they won't apply, they'll try, but they won't have the actual background to be able to get refugee status in a country, because they don't have a genuine claim to it. So then they'll try to country shop and see which country will let them claim.
I was like, I gotta speed
it
her up. I'm gonna get through to
that tends to be the
juicier
problem
bits
there, which is a big question I wanted to ask you. Do you see a difference between migrants and refugees, and do you think that difference is important?
Yeah, I mentioned that as well. Yeah, don't worry. Yeah.
Sorry, yeah.
I just thought, so for you'll probably notice, I feel like I'm just repeating my own script. You'll probably notice that I used migrant and refugee kind of interchangeably in that video.
Yeah,
because
it's a big pet peeve of mine.
It's a pet peeve of mine as well, and it's because that's what they are at sea. You don't know. NGOs can't assess someone's legal status. Even Mare Nostrum didn't have the power to assess legal status of someone they rescued. They take them to the country, whichever they're registered to, or just whichever country respects the dignity of those saved. And then the country decide whether or not they're a refugee or a migrant. So that's why you can't really call them either. Which
so
is
why do you use refugee then? When you
I use migrant as well.
It's a bit biased.
No, I've used both because it's both. I don't think there's ever been a boat that had 100% no refugees. I don't think I've seen that anywhere. I don't know,
because there would be a lot. I mean, any boat with the majority North Africans, which we've seen, absolutely would be people that would not have a lot. Anyways, would not have legitimate claim.
Yeah, well, but again, the point is here is that we're talking about what happens at sea, and the idea is at sea. How do you find out? You don't send them back. You find out by processing them in a country where they can be processed. And North African countries,
how do you process
again,
people who are destroying their identification and lying?
There are processes to that. Like it does take a long time.
Like it's this worldview, and you vilified them, I guess, your entire life, where you think of them as like just transported criminals, like boats of criminals, and they're coming over here to replace us. It's us versus them.
But there are ways around that. Like, I mean, this is like, there are UN articles about this and what you're supposed to do.
But can you see that people are deliberately doing this to make it difficult to ascertain who they are, perhaps because they don't actually fit into refugee status?
So just think of this. Are you willing to embark on, let's just say, a journey in which you have a probability of death and or arrest? In fact, those probabilities are so high that statistically you could end up drowning, you could end up arrested, you could end up losing either friends and or family members along the way. Like, are you going to undertake that? There'll be like limited amounts of food, perhaps no water for long periods of time. You may have to all like shit and piss in the same environment, closed little spaces, like things like that. Are you going to do that for long periods of time if you aren't in imminent danger, right? Like, it's most likely these people are fleeing conditions that are worse than what they're willing to embark upon. And that's usually the case with refugees.
Of course I can, and that's why it's a crime. It's a crime if you're found out doing that, or if like you go through because these vetting processes are pretty like interrogatory, aren't they? Like they grill them pretty hard to find these things out. And most refugees, like they come on their own because it's very dangerous to come with your family across the Mediterranean. They come on their own, and then you have to find out who their family is. And if they give you a name and you can't find who they are, then they get stuck as well. So like even people who do that get stuck in a gray zone, and that can become quite difficult for all parties, which is why I think that's like a problem with the smuggling business, which is why I think you agree with me that Mare Nostrum should come back, because smugglers should not be doing this. I think rescue missions are fine. It turns out that there was actually something in the BBC just yesterday that there are people crossing on dinghies that they just they just buy them and then go themselves because they can't find smugglers. So that's what the rescue missions are for, is for people who are going to come regardless of what's happening. But yeah, absolutely, like smugglers, like getting people to destroy their documents is insane. Like they shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah, and to me, like, is obviously, and this is something that people really misunderstand, and I think I don't agree with how you portrayed it. You were kind of like, yeah, Lauren thinks it's based and awesome that people just shut down missions to help people. Like, of course I don't want people drowning, and that's why I personally support the Australian system, which has led to 0 people drowning. But that doesn't work if you just get rid of the NGOs. You actually have to
have a question
close
about
the
that,
borders as well, because
I have
you
a
still
question
got to
about
draw.
that, though.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so Italy tried to do something very similar to this. What they did was do you know the memorandum that they did with Libya? The Coast Guard?
Explain it.
So Salvini signed, I think it was actually pre-Salvini, but yeah, they signed a memorandum with Libya, basically getting them to, do you have your headphones on?
I do.
Yeah, you just moved it, okay. They signed a memorandum with Libya, the Libyan Coast Guard.
Am I talking to anybody?
They would financially support Libyans to rescue people and then bring them back to Libya. That was like their border policing strategy, right?
Okay, so wait, they would pay. Sorry, can you explain that? I hurt myself trying to open my beer. I apologize.
The Italian, an interesting technique. The Italians paid the Libyan Coast Guard to intercept migrants/refugees to bring them back to Libya. They were supporting the Libyan Coast Guard to intercept people on dinghy boats and bring them back to Libya.
Yeah. They do things like that anyways, everywhere, without any sort. Like when I was in Turkey, there were gendarmes looking for us when we were on the water, like in helicopters. So they tend to. Like, border security tends to happen both ways in countries like that because the smuggling is so bad for Libya and Turkey as well. But like that, to me, from my understanding, that happens anyways. Like it was happening when I was in Morocco too. When I was talking to the traffickers, they were like, "Oh, we keep monitoring of when the Moroccan Coast Guard are in certain areas for when we launch our boats."
So my question to you is that like what you, assuming that like the smuggling business in Libya is massive, it's not really comparable to Australia where I think the numbers of smuggling like is comparatively lower because Libya's a big country. So I'm just wondering what you
there's
think
a
should
lot
be
of
done
smuggling that does
regards to-
happen from Asia.
So my question is, if you're
did.
intercepting people who are supposedly who they say are fleeing war or terror or whatever, and you stop them making that journey or just send them back, then the question is like you might be stopping drowning. I don't really know about Australia. I didn't look into that. But if you apply that to Europe, then the question becomes if they're not drowning, then where are they going? And in the case of Libya, which Generation Identity wanted to do, they wanted to send them back to Libya. Well, in the case of Libya, you end up in a detention center where you are raped, tortured, abused, you have a forced disappearance, you're trafficked within Africa. Basically, like, you didn't drown, but you might as well be dead. You know, like if you get intercepted by the Libyan Coast Guard and brought back to Libya, that's your life over. You're just a sack of meat with no human rights.
Okay, so see that's an interesting question, because is that not a problem with the Libyan system in general, as with many systems worldwide, many that don't qualify for refugee status but just have extremely, authoritarian regimes in most of the world, rather than that of enforcing.
Well, it's an authoritarian regime that Italy is supporting, though, and that Generation Identity was happy to send rescuees back to before determining their migration status. So if Generation Identity was rescuing people who they didn't know were refugees
let me ask,
and sending them back to Libya.
So, okay, this is actually something that's really interesting to me. What do you think would happen to you if you were a refugee caught leaving Turkey by the gendarme or a migrant or refugee caught leaving Turkey by the gendarme and brought in?
I don't know. I didn't look into Turkey. Probably bad, right?
Well, that's the thing. There's an assumption that you'll be treated horribly by these countries, right? They're these horrible persecution countries that. So I was arrested by the gendarme, essentially as a migrant, because we were found on illegal border territory. We didn't realize it was illegal territory. We were trying to get filming of the border, and they arrested us as though we were migrants trying to leave the country. And even more so, I was with two gay film guys, and I am a woman who has done quite a lot of anti-Islam commentary. We were terrified to say the least, right? And one of the big assumptions was, as a critic of Islam with two gay film guys, we are going to be screwed. This is like Midnight Express. We're going to go to jail. What actually happened is we were brought in by the military. We were held for a while, questioned. They actually brought in a doctor to check and make sure our health was okay, and we hadn't been beaten or attacked or anything happened to us by the guards. I remember her walking in and almost falling backwards. She was so shocked to see that we were white, because she's like, I'm so used to dealing with, migrants that are like Middle Eastern, not white people trying to cross borders. But she's like, yeah, it's my full-time job. I come in and make sure everyone's healthy. They gave us chicken, they gave us cookies and cigarettes, and the questioning part was a bit more serious and intense after like 10 hours of being told we might face jail time. But we were actually treated really, really well. So I do wonder, and you know what? I was pulled in for questioning in Morocco too, where I saw... What
are you suggesting here? I'm sorry, what I'm
suggesting,
I like many tangents and just like started the whole thing with and I find that happens with most of the straightforward questions too. It's like this enormous diatribe. You're like, where are you going with this? I asked you about budgetary concerns.
About to finish here. Morocco, I saw someone get beaten by the police when I was pulled in for questioning, which was horrific, but I also saw people just being talked to. What I'm suggesting is, like, does that exact thing happen in every single scenario? Like, I'll have to look into it a bit more, but is that like the protocol of the Libyan police, that if you are caught on a dinghy and we bring you back, we rape you and beat you, and that is like indefinitely your fate? Like, what is the research and data on that? Like, I don't doubt in some cases that does happen and that is horrific, but is that the actual protocol? What, like, do you have, I just feel
that's the classic Lauren technique too, where it's like, I'm going to now talk to you about a little caveat, right? I'll give you this, okay? I'll just admit that, hey, this is bad, and I don't want that either. No one wants that. But do you have any kind of proof or data that indicates that this happens a lot? You know, like, is this consistently happening?
I feel like there are a lot of
Well, like if they have a guidebook saying you should beat the shit out of refugees, or just whether or not it happens, because there was a spike after that memorandum was drawn up. There was a spike in detentions and detention-related abuses in Libyan detention centers. So, yeah, like, I mean, okay, let's say it happens to what, like, 10% of the people who are intercepted. That's still you sending, like, people who you haven't determined the migration status of. You don't know whether they're legit or not, but you've sent them to a dangerous situation. By the way, Libya is decided by the UN to not be a safe port. They emphatically say you can't send people you rescue back to Libya.
Okay, when was that brought in? Because for me, it's all about like actually applying the maritime law, actually applying the migration law.
Maritime
so if
law.
it is,
What's the maritime law again?
well, first of all, you know, you have to return people to the closest safe port. So if that is Turkey, you return them to Turkey. So you don't have to.
Sorry, go on.
Okay, you know, not migrating when you have no refugee status. And how do you, like, this is always a big question to me, because if the question becomes, if I am at sea and I leave a certain country and that country is potentially unsafe, like Libya, for me to be returned to, what happens if their passport has been destroyed? What happens here if they come over and they, you know, won't tell you where they're from, they have no claim to refugee status? The problem is that you are getting an unprecedented amount of people that can't be identified, that if you return to their original point of wherever they came from, you are told that you are cruel and horrible and condemning people to death even if you're not. So how do you enforce any laws? How do you enforce any sort of system that keeps people out before they've shown their passport or proved who they are, when anyone can essentially dub themselves a refugee in danger by just going into the Mediterranean?
Well, I think I think it's like just over half of people get their asylum claims accepted and the rest of them get rejected. So it's actually like, it's a pretty strict process. But then again, that also means that a lot of people crossing the sea, so given that the sea, the central Mediterranean is the most dangerous journey. So you'd expect the numbers of genuine refugees in there to probably be higher, but I can't prove that.
Yeah, someone made a good point in the chat too. They were like, if you stop the boats, they won't enter Libya to begin with and put themselves in danger.
Because although people already face risk of getting intercepted, they still cross.
Right, because the borders are open too.
They're
just factually incorrect on everything, just like one after the other. And it's almost unfortunate in terms of like how Lauren Southern is prepped to discuss these kind of things, her own films. Like, that's another thing. Like, you're talking about your own project because you went to such lengths to push this narrative, and she always does. Like, she wants to tell a particular kind of story, even if it doesn't line up with reality. And to do that, she's got to take all these little pieces, little crumbs, partial truths. Like, this is factually correct. This is factually correct. I'm going to take a piece of this, piece of this, piece of this. And then at the end of it, it's about how dirty criminals are coming over to take over white people. And you're like, whoa, wait, what? How did this all come about? So if you're talking to someone who just finished, and like LonerBox just finished making that video, so he's going to be, it's all pretty fresh, right? Like, what you learn in perhaps Create 5 is not going to be as sharp today, but once you've got a kid who's trying to talk about it, and then you relearn it all, you're like, oh yeah, okay, now I understand that. Okay, neat.
Which borders?
Because it's not like the Australian policy. If you try to enter the country, you'll just be sent to Christmas Island. If you try to enter Australia, you won't be allowed in the country whatsoever. So while there are still countries that are allowing people entry, they're still going to keep crossing. So you need to end both. And your comparison I watched at the beginning with Mare Nostrum and Triton 1 is just simply, there was only a 7% difference in actual drowning. Still horrific, of course, but that graph makes it seem like...
Do I think she's learning anything? I think, to be totally honest, she's trying to find the best ways to navigate being accused of these things. She's trying to level up herself. I don't know if she's necessarily trying to come to the truth. She's like, I don't know how much of it is a worldview that you've constructed for yourself versus like just the raw reality when someone's like, hey, by the way, immigration actually has a net benefit to your society. She's like, oh yes, I'm not anti-immigration, I'm anti-illegal immigration. It's like, okay, well, in the case of like refugees and or what you're determining to be migrants, a lot of them are fleeing horrific conditions in their home countries. They do not want to have to put their lives in danger or the lives of their children in danger. All of that. It's very important that we get to the bottom of this. And what is your opinion on that? It's like, well, I don't know. Do we truly know where they're coming from, what they've done? Who's to say? I mean, can we just drop them off at the nearest country? I mean, maritime law, of course, we should discuss.
Way different. And one of the big reasons that increased the amount of drownings wasn't because there was less search missions by Mare Nostrum. It was because they started using more dinghy boats at the time, and dinghy boats unfortunately increased over time.
Like, I'll be honest, for me, as this goes on and you start to see how much unraveling, like just the sheer amount of like, that's not correct, no, that's wrong, no, that's wrong. By the end of it, it's actually quite stunning.
Compared to fishing boats, and they're 20 times as dangerous compared to fishing boats. That's one other possible explanation. Of course, there's also the fact that significantly less traffickers were being arrested.
Yeah, I mean, the dinghy boats doesn't correlate exactly because there was an increase in 2016 of dinghy boats. It went from 67 to 82%, but then NGO presence was higher in 2017 than 2016, but then dinghy boats dropped. So they don't really connect at all.
Dinghy boats went up with Triton 1, which is when the drownings happened.
Well,
and
the
then
dinghy boats
since then.
The dinghy boats, well, they went up and then dropped. They went up and dropped because for a period in 2016, the smuggling hub was moved to Sabratha in Libya, where the militias had control. And the thing with militias is they can smuggle whoever they want on whatever boat they want, and the customers can't complain. So that's kind of where that actually fits better, because the rescue mission correlation, it correlates for 1 year, but then it goes negative the other, so it doesn't really fit. I want to bring you back, actually, if you don't mind. You were wrong about the next port of safety. The term that the UN uses is next port of call, which can mean the next port of safety, but they also actually say at the end that there are plenty of instances where this is unclear. Like, they actually say it's unclear, but the overriding concern is the safety and dignity of the crew and the people rescued, which is why it's very contentious sending people to North Africa, because first of all, Libya is obviously not a safe port. It's a disaster, which is why I'm still so confused about why Generation Identity wanted to send them there. And then Egypt has had kind of authoritarian problems. And then Algeria, well, they recently deported a bunch of migrants without due process. Tunisia, I think, actually has a chance, but they don't really have an asylum process at the moment. So it would probably be useful to start funding that instead of Libya. But yeah, that's why. And obviously different EU countries have different impressions of what a safe country is. But again, I wonder if what you're saying we should do when these people are rescued, because the first big spike in refugees happened in 2011 when there wasn't a refugee response, but that was because the Libyan civil war happened. So I think the problem with pull factors is you're actually ignoring push factors, like why do people leave? Because even on a good year, your chance of dying in the Mediterranean is 1 in 50, even when all the rescue missions were there, who are 1 in 50 chance of dying. So
when you've got a genuine refugee crisis, I obviously think that's a very different question. But certainly in 2016, 2017, when I was covering this stuff, the majority of people that I was meeting in refugee camps were, not from Syria, not from Libya. They were coming from countries which were not listed as refugee countries, and that's because these traffickers
listed by who?
Not in a current state of civil war or war in general, and actively listed as being able to apply for refugee status, which is why there are so many people living under bridges in Europe and living in camps not with refugee status all over the place. And this is another aspect that is really horrific. Camp Moria that I went to was burned down just this year because people were so sick of being there. They were like, I'd rather be back in Turkey right now. This place is horrible, and it just becomes a pay your way through system. Can you actually afford that? That's what it becomes when it becomes to the smuggler system. It isn't, are you an actual refugee? It's, can you afford to pay for the best trip over? And then once you get to Greece, can you afford to pay the doctor for a fake doctor's note that says you need to go to Athens? And then can you afford to pay a lawyer to make a good argument for you, even if you don't have the data? It actually kind of bastardizes the entire process for getting refugee status, sadly. But I do have to ask, do you understand that there needs to be a limited, this is unfortunate, I'm still saying definitely some, but do you understand that there needs to be a limited amount of dependents brought into a country under refugee status in order for that system to function?
What do you mean by dependents?
So people who obviously are in refugee status are typically leaving their country in a moment's notice. Right now, it wouldn't be somewhere within Europe. There's no country in Europe that is in an active war, other than, I mean, you could maybe argue Ukraine, but So typically people are migrating to countries where they don't necessarily speak the language, they have no connections, in a lot of cases no family, no, if you're a genuine refugee, no money to pay for a home in a lot of cases, somewhere to live. You need support, undeniably. You're not going to be able to just waltz in and get a job right away.
So there we are. We're back to this is more of a conservative talking point, right? With immigrants, they're going to all come into the country. Obviously, they're going to need some sort of system in order to help them. What if they don't speak English? Still need training, jobs training, perhaps, right? The answer to that is yes. And again, it is a net benefit to your society to spend that money. To spend that money on training refugees who come into the country or immigrants who come into the country, to give them language programs, to give them any kind of assistance that they need, maybe even subsidizing their rent, giving them food. But the idea that it's like a complete drain on society, that we're going to get all these leeches, you know, they're going to come over here and they're going to try to use all our resources and our bounties and our public health care if you're in Canada or something like that. She wants to vilify them, obviously, and think that they're like this massive drain. But they don't get a fuck ton of money. Like, even the money that is given to them for food, like LonerBox is going to point it out, it's like, it's not an overwhelming, like, it's destroying the fabric of society.
So do you recognize that for these people to enter a country and for them to be genuinely supported and put into a position where they can continue to live their own life in a meaningful way, that number has to be limited to a certain amount?
Yeah, that's why I think this first safe country thing is really stupid, because what happened in Europe was that you had this concentration in like it's southern Italy and southern Spain, places with massive like economic issues and debts and all that couldn't like handle more people, whereas they could have easily gone up to places like whether it was like France or Germany or northern Spain or even the UK, where the UK definitely has a labor shortage right now.
Massively full in Italy, massively full in Germany. Like they were, even back in 2015, they were all packed in Porte di La Chapelle and right on the border, and they were all packed in. Sorry, Porte di La Chapelle wasn't near the border. That's oh my goodness, this is where I got arrested. Why can't I remember the name of it? It's that canal.
You have to remember where you got arrested.
I know. How could I not remember this?
Too many times, though.
Starts with a C. I'm gonna get a map up here, but Porte de la Chapelle was like Paris. Map of France.
But again, that's why I would say that what the EU should have done, the EU should have actually been able to gather their resources in a much more useful way. Calais, yeah. Which is why the EU should have been able to pull their resources a lot better, so they could allocate people more evenly and in a much more pragmatic way. Whereas right now, you have like
what is
one
a much
country.
More pragmatic way? What is that?
A pragmatic way is like, well, one thing is getting rid of work bans on people who are currently seeking asylum. So if your asylum claim is still happening in the UK, you're not allowed to work, which is stupid. Like, these people want to work generally. And then the other thing is just actually looking at ways that different countries might not have the infrastructure to take refugees and other countries do. I don't buy for 1 second, by the way, that Germany is full. Like, there have been refugee crises throughout the centuries of like millions of people arriving in countries with less than 15 million people.
How the fuck do you forget Calais?
Economies can function like that because you add workers to the economy.
I think the problem there is typically people who have come in, they actually don't even have the capability to work, because in Paris, maybe a bit different, and this was actually quite sad.
Don't even have the capability to
of
work, of course.
From,
naturally.
Different countries in Africa that had previously been colonized by the French could speak French, so they could actually speak the language, but they just had no legitimate claim to asylum, so they couldn't get any papers, they couldn't work because they had no actual right to migrate there.
Well, that's what I think. That's why I think that's a problem with Paris, with France, and a lot of these countries that are drumming up anti-immigrant sentiment, is they're not really thinking about pragmatism. That whole thing of like just leaving undocumented people under bridges is a waste. Like, those people want to work. That's what they said to you.
But you understand why you can't give someone status who hasn't applied for it, right? You understand why you can't just have no immigration laws, because every single person worldwide would want to move to France immediately. That was in a poor country. And I'm not saying, like, it sucks that there's a large amount of the world that has been born in impoverished countries. That's horrible. We want to change that situation. But you can only have so many people that migrate into your country that are largely going to be dependent. So you can't change your migration laws just because someone's already there. Oh, you already came? Well, I guess shrug our shoulders. We'll just give you the right to work and live here if you don't actually fit into the status, because then that opens up for everyone. I'll just come over from India. I'll just come over from China. I'll come over from Canada, and can I be French now and work and live here even though I haven't put in any application? That wouldn't fly anywhere in the world. Doesn't matter if it's a European country or not. I wouldn't expect any country to do that for me.
Hey, thanks on Nintendo.
Give me citizenship because I'm already here.
Appreciate it.
Well, this didn't happen though, because when the Balkan route opened, most people stayed in Syria and Jordan and Lebanon and Turkey. The vast majority of refugees did not enter Europe from the refugee crisis. Barely.
Yeah.
And even when the Balkan route opened, even when Viktor Orban,
Yeah.
that fucking dipshit, was like basically
Calm
directing
down.
people
What?
into West, even basically directing people with his little half-built
Not Victor. Fuck off! Don't say shit about Victor.
walls into Western
the
Europe.
fuck?
Like when he was doing that, people stayed in Lebanon and
defense
Whoa,
Viktor
these
Orban.
people didn't want mass migration in their country. Are they not allowed to have their opinion and vote on that?
I think if you want to be part of the European Union, then yeah, you should probably abide by international laws. Yeah.
It's just like
So you think that the European Union should have more?
that's like the fourth or fifth time she's like gone really close with the camera because she has to like Google something and all of a sudden like, oh, he's right. But what about the trash garbage people that try to come over here with their trash garbage? Like we don't have any system for sorting through who is and who isn't trash garbage, you know?
Power than the people within a country.
On some things, yeah.
On some
It's kind
things,
of like-
including who should be allowed to enter their country.
When it comes to refugees, yeah.
Well, we're talking
Because
about
when-
migrants.
No, we're talking about
We're
people
talking
who are
about people
making
who have not been
claims.
decided, and in a lot of cases, they're moving once again through these countries because the refugee status has been rejected in the first country.
Well, how do
Thanks,
you
dropout janitor.
Alberta votes for Jet Thunders.
Well, no, you're
Jet
again like, you're
Thunders!
just speaking to like a few examples that you found. You don't know if someone is a refugee or a migrant until they claim asylum. So you need to give them the opportunity to claim asylum. And we have laws against existing in a country and not claiming asylum. That actually incurs deportation. So, again, how do you know unless they kind of right? Because what you're saying, and it seems like what Generous
okay, so
Identity is saying,
I have
is don't
I
let
have
them come
friends
at
of
all.
mine that are like refugees that have immigrated, for example, to Australia, Bosnia. They were part of their families were in a lot of the wars in that were going on in Eastern Europe. And you know they were able to put claims in before
Some
they
lore
actually
there.
left their country to go to the new country, and that happens in a lot of cases. In fact, that's typically how refugee claims occur.
No, that can happen. It's not typically how claims occur.
Okay,
because
so
what if
not
the embassy,
typically, but that is a possibility, and probably looking at the crisis occurring right now is the better form of making an application than ending up in Camp Moria and having it burned down because you're so miserable where you are and you can't get status because you found out you don't actually have a right to asylum even though your human trafficker told you would.
Yeah, so again, like if you can claim asylum through an embassy, people would do that rather than risk a 1 in 50 chance of dying across the sea. Because the thing with the embassy, like you said, it's an option. They don't have to do that. And you probably have to assume that every journey into Europe is dangerous. Even the Balkan route is dangerous. So if they're not claiming asylum in an embassy and just coming over instead, it's because that's their human right. That's their right under international law. So again, it's an option to claim at assembly.
So
But
what would
No,
you
I haven't
do,
seen it.
What would you do about
I'll peep it.
mass amounts of people? And I do remember reading European Union data, I'd have to go back and find it, saying it was actually the majority who were coming over for economic reasons at one point in around 2016, 2017. What would you do about those who are attempting to make refugee claims, but they're actually just economic migrants?
well, if your refugee claim fails, then you get deported. That should be the case anyway.
So just send them all back?
Not all of them, the ones who fail their claims, yeah.
Yeah, so you'd get them on airplanes and send them home? What if they've destroyed their passports so you don't know what home is for them?
Yeah, I saw
Again, that's like a
Winston.
legal
So
gray zone,
funny.
but that's
Debate me,
the larger
movie
issue.
No, that is
People come over
almost,
I
if you don't have
destroyed
legitimate
movie
refugee status and you're coming from a country that you know you can be
Oh,
deported
I'm
to
excited
if
for
you
that.
wanna stay, a lot of them, a large amount, destroy their passports like before they even get to the water.
I know, I'm just really interested in this claim
there was
about.
destroyed passports all over the ground. So like, what do you do about that? Because this
Yeah,
is
okay,
the
like,
question at hand.
I don't doubt that you saw a bunch of destroyed passports, but again, like, what are the stats on that? Because most people who arrive, as far as I remember, they make claims.
Well, they attempt to, and a lot fail, unfortunately. And then you have a bunch of people stuck in limbo under bridges and in camps, which, as you said, has increased anti-migrant sentiment all across Europe. It's a problem, and it's a problem that I can accept is complex, and you bring up good points, but you still you've still massively got the problem when you don't stop.
It's complex. You brought up some good points. You've pretty much corrected me on everything I've said so far, but still.
Where it's occurring. As you've said, one thing is to potentially stop the push factors, and I am all for investigating and what we can do there. But sometimes the push factors, and in a lot of cases, are just general poverty. And I think if we're speaking in a sane manner, we know world poverty is unfortunately just never going to go away. So in that case, you have to go to the next push factor, which is the fact that, you just have a trafficking service happening in the Mediterranean. and open borders there. So
I mean, are you still describing the NGOs as a trafficking service? Because I thought we kind of just established that they were doing everything within their rights.
Oh, I think the Mare Nostrum mission that was actually arresting traffickers while picking up people that were genuinely in distress wasn't a trafficking service. But if you are just a service that is going off into, foreign waters, picking people up and bringing them back in, that's a trafficking service, of course. And that was exactly what was occurring. I haven't explored Libya, but I've explored the other two largest points, Turkey and Morocco, and that is exactly what was happening there.
Well, Morocco, okay, but again, NGOs doing I think when you were talking about NGOs like actually doing trafficking, like you don't actually buy that those investigations are not turning out any evidence of them, including with smugglers, though.
I think they are absolutely going and picking up people that are not in distress. Of course, you don't think that's happening?
Well, no, because
you don't think if they find a boat of people that are doing just fine, they don't pick them up anyways? Like, because I know how I would think if I were doing that. I'd be like, yeah, help them out. Let's pick them up. And then we'll just say they were in distress when we get back. Of course they'd do that.
Why would they? Again, because they're globalists or whatever. I don't know.
Well, because they want people to come over no matter what. They're open borders. Of course, they support that. They just say, yeah, we have to skirt the legal thing. And I know this because we've talked to them.
Okay, so yeah, that's just like, okay, maybe I'm sure that some of the ones you talked to were. But again, like, when NGOs have been accused of this, they have to publish. You can look at the Juventa case. This was one where they actually had to publish all of their logs, like, because NGOs film all their missions. They have evidence of them doing this.
Do they?
And yeah, you can look up the Juventa case if you want. They released all their archives.
I'll go look at it. It can be really. Do you actually have the court documents? Because it can be so difficult. Like with the Panos case, like they're actually ERCI are still under investigation. Like they're.
I know they are. So, I mean, the Aquarius are still under investigation for dropping AIDS into the sea. These investigations.
Yes, these investigations aren't over. And as we both know, sometimes excuses will be made that are legitimate, but are made to actually discover further criminal activity. So someone who's a massive gang member will be arrested for, having pot on them, but the intention will be to further an investigation into their activities or give the police rights to be able to have a search warrant for their home to find something bigger. And I assume certainly Salvini, and I at least think you'd agree with this, Salvini and the prosecutors working with him are probably hoping to investigate more with this case than just AIDS blankets.
Yeah, but why would I don't know if I can trust anyone who's worried about AIDS blankets. But anyway,
what I'm saying is there is a bigger thing going on than just the AIDS blankets, but the AIDS blankets
don't know that,
what they were able to get them on, because of course they've been accusing them of people trafficking for years. So of course I know that. I know they think that.
Yeah. So why the AIDS blankets though?
Because they can catch them, because they actually have the
Oh, I'm sorry, you're coming up to the best part, but
how can you catch someone?
Clothing, here's the.
How can you catch someone in AIDS blankets though?
It's HIV infected clothes, as you stated on your video from.
But you can't get HIV from clothes.
What do you? So it's clothing that has been contaminated.
Yeah, you can't get clothing. You can't get HIV from clothes. Even if there's blood on the clothes, you can't get HIV from touching HIV clothes. HIV dies as soon as it leaves.
Let's look it up because there must be some sort of law that they're going under. I assume they aren't contaminated.
They were going under toxic waste, but
right.
Again, clothes. The clothes.
Fucking again, you learned this as a kid. At least I did. I mean, I guess I'm a little bit older, but most people were like, yeah, so we're just gonna have to have sexual education finally for you students, and let you all know that again, if you engage in any form of sexual activity with partners, you'll need to use protection for these things. Of course, things like condoms and dental dams can prevent the transfer of very prominent STDs. HIV being obviously one of the most dangerous ones, but in today's day and age, in 2021, of course, there are a variety of cocktails you can take that'll definitely make it a livable situation, unlike in the 80s when it was a death sentence. So we've come a long way for that. Can I get the AIDS if I touch a person with AIDS? No, not unless there is some form of perhaps a cut. It's mostly through seminal fluid, of course, and blood that it transfers. If I touch clothing that has the AIDS, do I get the AIDS? No, it's not how it works. So you can be served by someone with HIV, you will not contract HIV. You can play sports with someone with HIV, you will not contract HIV. You're probably going to be fine. But then here we are, 2021, the year of our Lord. It's amazing.
People who have HIV, it's not toxic waste. It was just labeled as special waste, and that was it. Like,
Okay, well, I'd have to look into the law, because I'm sure, like, medical clothing, you know, when you go into a hospital and there's, like, the blood bins, you throw it in there and it's considered toxic waste if it's people who have diseases. So, I mean, I assume there was some legal precedent for that. As I said, I have not done a full legal analysis of your video, and it can be, and after doing your research, I'm sure you would agree with this, it is a bitch to find European actual case documents, especially using, like, English Google, having to put in all the little preferences and be like, no, put it in Greek, no, from this time, no, legal cases, Google Scholar, and it's just like you're getting to the 11th page of Google.
This one I'm going to send you actually has, like, images as well of the...
yeah, contaminated medical waste or biohazard.
Yeah, but it's, again, it's not biohazard if it's clothes that someone who had AIDS wore. Like, it's just such a strange accusation. It's like, I think I know why they did it.
Because I assume the media, like, as we both know, the media they're like AIDS blankets. They won't actually...
No, this is what the prosecutor said. They said
well,
it was clothing contaminated.
Okay, do you have the actual, like, prosecution document not interpreted by the media?
Is that what you had? Because you're the one that made the claim. I got the claim from you.
Well, that's what I read from the media, that's why the ship was shut down.
So you took the media at their word. I'm doing the same.
So
like,
I'm saying that's why the ship was shut down. But if you're saying that it's like a bizarre legal claim that has no precedent, we'd have to actually look at the legal documents. Like,
well,
I get what you're saying. Like, oh, you can't catch HIV from just this clothes. Well, let's see what the actual
I know why they said.
legal
Because
claims.
if you accuse someone of something, that has to get investigated. And if you say they were mismanaging toxic waste, then they have to investigate.
Yeah, her source is probably Rebel News.
Since the toxic waste they're referring
to... It's not her
is
fault,
clothes
it's Rebel
of people who
News.
had HIV.
Right, okay, well, like I said, I'll have to actually look into what laws are around that and why they have that law in. That's just what I know, that the ship was initially impounded and shut down by Italy.
Further
anyways.
research
I know it
needed.
had been impounded and shut down multiple other countries before for their activities. But, yeah.
What other activities were they impounded for?
I just know that other countries had taken away their license and ability before.
No, that's not impounding though. If they take away their, I mean, there's a whole.
I'm pretty sure they were impounded in Spain as well.
And again.
Impounded.
Were they impounded by Spain or were they just there?
Let's see.
I know, because I know their charge is for AIDS clothes. Like that's what they're under investigation for.
LonerBox is doing this all at 3 a.m. He's just there on his phone, like
I couldn't find anything the last year from
like a professor or something.
Well, I'm just wondering why you brought it up.
Wait. Because I'm saying, like,
this is what you said.
People are,
like what the fuck?
Be a non-government enforcer of the law, Lord, and I'm like, well, the government have actually impounded and,
well, they
taken
didn't
the ship in
impound.
themselves.
Well, no, they took the ship in a year after you did your thing with the boat.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like the ship.
So there was nothing.
The ship had been accused of illegal activity, and they had been taken in and impounded by the government, and were not allowed to sail anymore. So people were accusing me of being this force of, like, you think you're above the law, but I'm like, no, the law actually decided that the ship was problematic as well. And we'll have to go through the specific things that they have put forward. That was one of the reasons, the toxic waste, which I'm sure there is more to that than just what the media have reported, because we'll have to get the exact case documents, but that was the reason
toxic waste.
The government have impounded the ship, and the government have decided that there
and
was
the
at least
AIDS
some premise or
clothing
standing for them to do that and to stop their missions.
AIDS sweaters.
Again, like, so yeah, again, toxic waste didn't come up until after. That's post-talk. And again, trafficking. There wasn't even an investigation.
Rivers and Ravens. This is what I don't understand about Lauren Southern. She seems reasonably bright and then decides to die on a hill like AIDS clothes, or how do you know it's a mass grave? I know. It is baffling to me. You know what's like the double down? She on that comment typed "what debunk?" question mark, and then like in some other like Twitter quotes was like, I don't understand. He just confirmed what I already knew, that like, you know, they said that they won't know for sure if these are mass graves until the children are exhumed. I was like, Lauren, no. Do you understand what you're saying right now? I'm going to make this very, very clear for you. This is the equivalent of someone having an x-ray done on their body and then a biopsy, and then someone saying, hey, by the way, you have cancer based on this, and you being like, well, we won't know for sure until we have the whole thing outside of me. So just take the whole thing out, and then we'll know for sure that we have that. It's like, yeah, based on the technology we have, the precedents we use these things for, it's extremely likely that these two things we confirm the presence of something like cancer. In the case of the mass graves, she keeps falling back on, we're not going to know for sure unless someone digs the bodies up, so until then, I'm going to deny that any of this happened, and the science and the processes behind it. When meanwhile, you're like, they did find body parts. They were looking in that particular area because they found a tooth and a bone of a kid. It's not as if it's like, let's just randomly search this. It's like, we found the remains of children already. Now let's use a technique that's been wildly used in other areas to do the exact same thing that it's used for here. It's like, but we just don't know. It's not all the science is in yet.
Or like a charge.
There was an
Is it just like people-
investigation.
The investigation didn't start until 2018.
That's it. That's a really good
2018,
way of putting it. She's smart enough to want to do research on these topics, but she has no interest in changing her mind, especially when it happens to do with a lot of stuff that is like, she's very ideological driven, right? Like, so much of this, if you combine all the things that we're talking about, from the boat story to the mass graves, genocide denial, to then the last one being the Great Replacement Theory, she doesn't want to have to change her worldview on all of this. Like, all of this stuff is interconnected, right? If one piece falls and you're like, oh, wow, I was completely wrong about this. Statistically, mass immigration, even if that of refugees in countries that can safely sustain them, is not going to be a detriment to society or culture, or start popping up as if there's going to be all of a sudden all these mooches who are coming into the country trying to drain our precious resources or anything like that. It actually has a net benefit to society in most cases. Then it's like, holy shit, well then, have I just been a bigot this whole time? Did I travel there for nothing? Did I hold the flares for nothing? No more. No more. Illegal immigration.
So there was an investigation. Oh, but you're
Yeah, I
saying
know there was an
happened
investigation,
after.
but it didn't. Yeah, it happened after, didn't it? Because
Yeah,
you weren't
that's-
talking about that. You were talking
That's
about them
irrelevant,
bringing
because
in illegals.
the point was that there are illegal migrants coming in.
Just like
that don't
conspiracy
actually
theorists?
have
Exactly.
refugee status, and we're finding that out more and more going forward, that these people don't actually have claim to refugee status, and something needs to happen about this, because at the moment, sorry about to sneeze.
Yeah, so this again, this has nothing to do with illegal activity or infected blankets.
Okay, the first illegal activity is migrants coming in without refugee status, so they're committing the
Is it
illegal
illegal? It's not.
activity.
The boat, is the boat doing that? Because the boat's supposed to take people to the next port of call, which was Italy. The boat was supposed to do that.
I'm still not sure. So let's see. Can you link me that European Union document, next port of call?
Always
Next
gets to
port
that
of
point
call
where it's like,
is- I think I'm gonna open here. It's UN. Here we go. Yeah, it's actually in your
UN.
DMs. It's in the
again, yeah, and this is 3 a.m. for him. He's not
And
like
if you just
standing
look at
there,
page
like,
8,
you know,
next port of call.
researching for her. He's just like,
So that's UN though.
Someone in chat.
like, do you realize, like, again, we keep using the metaphor of like the teacher and the student in a classroom, but like at the end of the day, this was her video. This is your subject. You are the one who made this, you know, when you start talking about this kind of stuff.
That's calling me laundry box. That's really funny.
Laundry box.
She always asks for stuff and never looks at it. Yeah, I know.
All right.
Well, because it's to invalidate it, right? It's to invalidate what you're talking about. It's like, I'd like to see that myself. And you're like, okay, here you are. And it's like, so I'd like to talk about this next new thing.
I'm sorry. I don't want to be rude. I don't want to be rude, but I feel like this is the kind of research you'd want to do before making claims against a refugee boat that's saving.
Well, no.
lives.
At the time, I had of course done a lot of the research. It's been
Yes.
what, 2017. 18,
Yes.
2021. It's been like 5 years, right? 4 or 5 years. It's been a minute since I've been looking into this ship and its actions, and the first time I've done a whole lot of looking into it was probably that last video I did, the Vindicated one you reviewed, and then like yesterday doing a bit of Googling about and looking through some of the data you posted below your video. So it's been a minute since I've actually done a look into the update. And in Borderless, obviously I was reporting on the specific organizations between Turkey and Greece and Morocco and Spain, which is why I have a lot more to say on them right now than I do about the Aquarius, because that's been the most recent research I've done into it.
Okay.
I'm
so
not
again,
seeing
so
anything
maybe-
about next
maybe
port of call in this document you sent me.
If you control find,
I did.
are you on page 8? Next port of call?
Did you send me something after that? Blaming the rest?
No, I
oh,
sent you
it's the
something
first
after.
one,
I
yeah.
said 94. Yeah, 94 PDF.
So this is UN though.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Background
I said it was UN.
Oh yeah, absolutely fantastic from LonerBox's perspective. I'll be completely honest with you. Like I said, the debate bro meta is like a thing of the past. I think everyone is pretty much over with that entire technique and style of having people. It's become a complete cartoon of its former self. We now have actual people who are actually like playing background music while being like, "The revolution is upon us, comrades. Another opponent destroyed in the face of a mightier alpha male." But now we have LonerBox, who I know is not in any way a debate lord or anything like that. I'm just saying it's very refreshing just to have someone who's calm and annoyed. Just those two things. Calm, researched on the topic, and annoyed. Not angry, not overly emotional perhaps like moi, but just calm and annoyed. It's working out very well for him. Just time and time again. And like still on top of everything else, a little bit of spice, you know, like I don't want to be rude, but isn't this the kind of thing you should have researched before you made a movie making all these wild claims?
Nations High Commission. Oh, of course my quick search isn't working. Oh, find on page. There we are. Okay. The ship port of call. Which page was it? 8? Clearly.
8. It's section 30.
Okay, there we go.
He just has to like
Next
sit
port of
there
call.
with
In
like
summary, the
Control
Executive
F.
Committee, blah, 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 blah. In summary, the Executive Committee pronouncement taken into conjunction with the obligation under international maritime law to ensure delivery to a place of safety call upon coastal states to allow disembarkation of rescued asylum seekers at the next port of call. In accordance with international practice, support by the relevant international instruments, persons rescued at sea should normally disembark at the next port of call. This practice should also be applied to asylum seekers rescued at sea in cases of large-scale influx.
Even
Asylum
younger.
seekers
Thank you for the
rescued at sea should
$10.
be
That's very
at least
generous
on a
of you.
temporary
I
basis.
appreciate it.
States should assist in facilitating their disembarkation by acting in accordance with the principles of international solidarity and burden sharing in granting resettlement opportunities. Okay, so this is UN. Now, of course, not everyone agrees to or signs on to UN rules, as we know. So what is it?
Of course, it's whenever I don't like what I've just absorbed or read or seen, it's probably something like a universality, you know. Not everyone accepts this. It's you know.
No, it's just that
rubbish.
you brought up maritime laws.
Okay, but yeah,
So
so
that's
that's what I'm saying. Let's look at the maritime laws.
Do you remember
that
when she
actually
said
cover Italy.
should have done like a record skip there, like
Pause it.
no, that was you. Remember when you were talking about how you liked maritime law? That was you who brought that up.
Like, is this the
No,
maritime law?
this is maritime law. This is it's that background note on the protection of asylum seekers and refugees rescued at sea.
But that's
International
just
maritime
one-
law.
Okay.
Yeah, this is international maritime law. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to actually look into this a bit more because I'm not sure if from the time that I was looking into this, it was definitely the closest port you have to drop them off at if it is someone at sea. So.
And again, well, first of all, I think the qualifier, even if that's true in the case of the Aquarius, it would be the closest port of safety. Libya is not a port of safety. Morocco is further away. The Moroccan waters are further away from Spain, let alone Italy. So.
And I also wonder, because this is a document entirely.
I like how someone in your chat is quoting like half of the paragraph and saying it debunks me. That's really fun.
Did they say?
Sorry.
There may be
He's quoted
instances
half
where
of
the
the
next
thing,
port of call
yeah.
may not be the closest one, but rather the one best equipped for the purposes of receiving traumatized and injured victims and subsequently processing any asylum applications. In other situations involving state vessels intercepting illegal migrants, the nearest port of that state could be regarded as the most appropriate port for disembarkation purposes. So I do think that this does say intercepting illegal migrants, you put them in the most appropriate state, which means the state they came from. Would you not agree?
Well, how do you know they're illegal if you found them at sea?
Maybe if they were coming through trafficker vessels through countries which typically have no one with migrant applications, like Turkey, which is a safe second country, or like Morocco, which the vast majority of people are not coming with asylum seeking applications.
Again,
Or-
being from
sorry, go
coming
ahead.
from a safe country, well, first of all, these people came from Libya. They come from Libya, not Turkey. And again, they're in the sea from Libya, and being in a safe country, even if they were, doesn't instantly make you an illegal immigrant. The people who rescue them are not determining their legal status. How do you know they're illegal when you found them at sea?
Mate, like, I don't know what to tell you.
There it is. There it is. The collapse. And when I watched this for the first time, I was like, wow. It just broke her. At that point, she's like, the whole house of cards, this whole thing, the lies within lies within lies. It's like, ugh, I don't know what to tell you, man, if you're not going to see it for what it is.
The reason why Australia has the policies they do and why they have worked so well and why Europe is currently dealing with a bunch of people living under bridges and burning down migrant camps in Greece. What is happening right now is not
okay, again, that's just, okay, so why are you making all these claims then? If you just want them all to get sent to, like, wherever, Christmas Island, or even just to stay in the country that they
maybe
would
that
otherwise
is a solution. Maybe they should be sent to an island to be processed first, so there isn't this drive factor, which is saying, yeah, you get into Europe and you can just keep shopping around until someone accepts your asylum claim, and if they don't, well, the traffickers probably lied to you and told you that they'll get it anyways. Like, there are, like, can we at least agree something needs to change? Because right now, it's not working. And if you hold
Australia-
the policy which you're suggesting, which is you just
Australia just drops refugees on Nauru. The human rights abuses of Nauru is not really a thing to celebrate. I think she also forgets Australia is like thousands of miles from anywhere, where Europe is all fairly close. Also true.
Just let everyone in because you may or may not know if they're a migrant or not. That's going to result.
That is what we already do.
Yeah, and it's not working. It's not working.
It's not working because people are, first of all, they keep on declaring countries like Libya as safe countries, like, which is kind of difficult. And then the second thing is,
so should anyone from Libya be able to come? Like, should the entire country of Libya, every single person who lives there, be able to come?
This like section here, after like he's already completely broken her, kind of goes back to the original question someone in chat was asking. Do you think that she actually has an interest in like having her mind changed or learning? No, as you can clearly see right here, right? Like without any, like there's no more factual ground to stand on. That's like completely been eroded. And so now it's just like, well, you know what? Say whatever you want to say, show me whatever studies you want to show me, but at the end of the day, like there is a crisis, and it's a crisis of immigration, and it has to be stopped, you know? Like that's what we're coming down to. If I'm actually being reverted down.
Come to Europe.
You don't have to do a, you
no,
don't have to go
like
with
that.
this, you don't
If
have
the
to go
argument's
with
reached like its original state.
Again,
No, it's not a
you can
slippery
already
slope.
do that,
That's,
and
you
they don't
actually
do it.
have to consider these things. Like, should anyone from Libya be allowed to come to Europe and claim refugee status?
Do you say anyone or everyone? Again, that's
Anyone.
different. Because
Should
yeah,
anyone.
yeah. In Libya, yeah.
And
Unless they're like
given...
fucking no. Like, again, claim. Unless they're like, I don't know if they're part of whatever that group's called, not the GNA, the other ones. Yeah.
Okay.
But again, you have to find that in the processing, in the processing.
So what do you do when you like? Let's see. How many refugees? Do you think there needs to be a cap on refugees and migration in countries?
Like an absolute number?
Yeah.
I don't think so. No.
So, and I know you're going to call this a slippery slope, but the amount of people who are in poor countries,
there's
in
lots of
turmoil
them,
actually probably outweighs the amount of countries that are not in turmoil and have a bit of wealth.
Ooh, we're getting a little replacey now. Yep. There's a lot more of them out there. You know, those scary poor immigrants, and apparently there's going to be some mass migration because of climate change. Oh no.
Yeah, and believe it or not, most of them never like have the opportunity to come to Europe now, and they don't do it. Why is everyone calling this open borders? Like, we already have, like, international law for refugees is already open borders, and people don't leave.
Well, no,
Most
a lot
people
of people
stayed
don't
in
leave
Jordan,
because
Lebanon.
They can't. They just don't have the ability, and they know that they wouldn't be. They probably realize they'll be sleeping under bridges because there's just no more money to
Yeah, that was a good
support
pause.
these countries. There's no more. The systems are overburdened.
Well, they do.
The systems are overburdened.
Like, if I had the money right now, I'm not joking.
America and Canada can stand to take in so many more immigrants than we do, and that includes refugees by vast numbers. Like, you just that's a statement I can make, and then you can easily go onto the Googles and be like, oh wow, yeah, that's true actually.
I would take you on a trip, and I promise you right now, I'm pinky swearing, if I win the lottery, and you have to promise back to me, I will take you on a trip. You can come with me on a trip to Morocco. We'll go to Porte de la Chapelle. We'll go to Calais. We will go to the Greek islands, and we'll meet these people. And you can tell me if you think that we should be letting everyone in Europe. And if this.
No,
this
Lauren, I'm not
working.
gonna go on a little trip and like.
No, I'm saying
preconceived-
no. No,
I'm not gonna go.
You don't have to accept anything I say. I'm just saying I'll take you there. You can go loose, have your own.
I love that. Like, again, like a professor speaking to a student, just being like, no, what are you talking about? This has nothing to do with anything. I came here because you apparently think that I'm making fallacious claims about your documentary when I would like to back up everything that I put in that video.
Time
Yeah,
to
because
hear from everyone.
I mean, I personally don't agree with the idea of going like with a bunch of preconceived notions and just looking at
I
things.
didn't tell you to
don't
have
really
preconceived
Yeah, no
notions. I
shit.
told you I'd just take you there to see it for yourself.
Everyone goes with preconceived notions. That's why.
Well,
I
your
tend to look at the
preconceived
data.
notions are probably against my opinions, anyways. So.
Well, like you exactly, but me finding something that suits me and using it against you wouldn't prove anything. I could just film a bunch of cherry-picked situations
No,
and
but,
then
like-
say like this proves my case. Again, like this is what happens though when you do things that way. Is you end up forgetting about maritime laws on ports of safety or following through with cases on AIDS blankets. You have nothing. Like you just end up making like these kind of strange kind of proxy arguments. So again, like what do you want to do with these people when like even generation identity? I'm asking again. I'm not sure if you've answered yet. People getting rescued in the sea. They don't have to be an NGO. They could be a commercial vessel going fishing. What are they supposed to do?
What do you mean? What are they supposed to do if they're a commercial vessel fishing?
Like if you're a commercial vessel and you receive a distress call, maritime laws, you have to rescue them. What do you do? So what do you do? What do you do with them?
Of course, if you are
Or even a generation identity. What?
If you are receiving a distress call, you have to help them. That is, of course, maritime law. But going out into waters and with the deliberate intention of picking people up in boats, working for some of these NGOs that are deliberately coaching people to try to get them refugee status they don't apply for, as they've told us, having missions where you go out on sea dues every day and pick people up and bring them over, like, something needs to change here, and perhaps that change is only allowing embassy applications for refugee status the same way they do in Australia, or only allowing the application to come from a place like Christmas Island. Maybe they get an island where they make all the applications happen from there.
But I thought you were saying
making it happen from somewhere which is already like largely inhabited tends to ruin that island and cause a lot of conflict, because you have a bunch of people, anyone, doesn't matter where you're from or what your background is, I'd be the same, a bunch of people with no hope, no opportunity, no status for, no potential future because they've destroyed their identification and they can't apply for refugee status. Putting all those people in one place, whether it be in Italy or an island or in the middle of France, causes a lot of violence and chaos and destroys communities. So you have to ask yourself, right now the system is not working, it's not working. Do we keep going as we're going?
It's not working.
And that seems to be your suggestion. Because
No,
I'd say the Australian
hey,
system is
hey.
better. Just shut it all down, because you can't even
I
help the
did
people
not
in your own
say-
country.
I did not say keep going. First of all, distress calls can be received from boats that are docked or coast guards. The Italian Coast Guard does like a quarter of the rescues in some years. So even you're not going to get rid of the entire Coast Guard, right? Because that would mean there'd be a potential for rescue missions.
I didn't say
So,
to get rid of
again-
the entire Coast Guard.
Well, yeah, but the Coast Guard can do rescue missions. So again, so you're saying like rescue missions will happen, people will move, and then what, they get put into a detention island? I don't know. I feel like I'm going to look at
There needs
Australia
to
for the
be-
next day or two and find that there's massive like human rights abuses happening in Christmas Island. And again, if they can't come over to Australia, where do they go? Do they stay in the island that they would
A lot of people live there
typically
for
be
a long
fleeing?
time. A lot of people live on Christmas Island for a long time. But it's a question of,
How many people are in Christmas Island right now?
let me see. It's the amount of people that actually leave and try to come now is massively reduced, and their drownings are down to 0 though.
Again, drownings. Like if you applied this to somewhere like Libya, the number of drownings decreasing
Okay,
doesn't
there
mean anything if they're just ending up
as
in
of
Libya
2010, there were 1,400 people living on Christmas Island, but that's just population, so I'm not sure if people
No,
are
I'm not
counted
worried.
or-
Quiverine talks to the guys
Again,
who
I'm thinking
made
we're
the
talking
woke
about where they
city
come
racist
from.
skit.
So again, if you stop the boats
Fine.
from Libya, then I don't really care. If drownings go down, that means they're in Libya. They're in detention centers and facing human rights abuses where they might as well be dead.
You're not
anyway.
understanding, like it's, so like someone just mentioned in the chat, when they stopped the boats, refugees, quote unquote, stopped flying into Indonesia, right? There was a draw for people to actually go to these countries, and that's what was happening. People that were, and I'm going to use Morocco as a context because that's where I've been on the ground, but I know it's happening in Libya too. People were going to these countries. They were going into these situations. They were putting themselves in situations where they were potentially going to go into capsized boats, where they were going into countries like Libya, where, yeah, if you get caught, you're probably going to have a pretty bad time. It's probably going to be horrible. But people are going into these situations because there is a draw there. There is a driver, which is the fact of open borders, the government. And you know, I don't blame these people, because the government in Europe and NGOs, all these activists have been telling them for decades, yeah, open borders. Smugglers are telling them that too. Open borders. You come in, you're going to get a house. We're going to take care of you. Our home is for refugees. Everyone's got the signs out. You know,
Oh, of course she'd love Duterte.
So they're going into these situations. A few things are happening. One, they get caught anyways, doesn't matter what the policy in Europe is, and they go to a Libyan jail and it's horrible. 2, their boat capsizes and it's horrible. 3, they get across to Europe and they don't get any refugee status or any status at all because they were illegally migrating and didn't have a right to it, and they end up living under a bridge or getting killed in one of their camps.
More than half of the people get their claims eventually accepted. I think it's 40% immediately and then another 29% after
Okay,
that.
so you still are left
again,
with
you
hundreds
keep
of
on, you
thousands
keep
of
on doing,
people in limbo.
I'm saying that's a problem, but I'm saying it's not worth sending a bunch of people who, in your words, who get their claims accepted.
What is the stat, the half of? Is it half of people that come by sea, or is it half of actual refugees, or half of people who make claims?
Why do you keep contrasting people who come by sea and with actual refugees?
Because not everyone that comes by sea is an actual refugee. Plenty are just
Not everyone
economic
that
migrants.
Not everyone that comes across in any way would be like an actual refugee, though, right?
Yeah,
You would
sure.
expect people coming from
Yeah, so
sea
what
the
is what
most
is this
dangerous way.
of half the people who get accepted?
Half the people who claim asylum.
Half
right?
the people who claim asylum, right? So how many of that is the actual portion coming over?
What do you mean the portion coming over?
Like the actual people coming over on boats that are trying to migrate to Europe. What percentage of those are actually get accepted as refugees?
I don't really know if they would file that, would they? If they're like in the asylum process and they're gathering data saying we need to gather stats on asylum seekers who came by sea. Asylum claims by sea, I don't know. Why does that matter though? Because again, like you keep saying like actual refugees versus people from boats.
All right, I have to end this stream pretty soon here, so I'll just really try to clarify. No, I'm 20 minutes over, I just realized.
It's fine.
And I'm fine to talk to you again. Yeah, I'm totally good to talk to you again. But no, I'll just really clarify my position here. There are a lot of people coming over.
No, we know your
I would say
position,
the majority,
Lauren.
based on what I have observed, the majority that do not actually have any claim to refugee status, that are not being
Zero got a
processed
tier
in any
1
meaningful way
subscription.
into the system.
Hey,
in
T0,
Europe, whether it
thank
be
you.
Greece, Italy,
Zero.
Germany, France, Spain. They are disappointed, rightfully so. They've been promised things by human traffickers that could never be fulfilled. In a lot of cases, they're homeless. In a lot of cases, they have no hope. In a lot of cases, they have no ability to work or make a living because they, once again, could not make any claim in these countries.
Oh, I know. I was just repeating what the robot
And
said.
it is going to lead to disaster, both for these people and both for the European people, because a lot of people that are miserable with no hope.
Both
is
for these
dangerous
people
and
and the
no
European
matter
people.
what your
Stay
color
where
is,
you
no matter
are.
what
Don't
what
come.
your gender is.
Do not
A
come.
lot of people with absolutely no hope, no jobs, nothing, that were sold a lie. That is dangerous. That is dangerous anywhere you go. And there's going to be a lot of misery, a lot of disappointment, a lot of crime, which we are already seeing in these places. And I mean, once again, just this year, the camp was literally burnt to the ground in Moria because the migrants, they were so pissed off with the situation they were in. And it is not good for anyone. And something needs to change. Something needs to change. And for that to even happen, for the problem in Europe right now to even be dealt with, they need to actually stop and just figure out what the hell is going on, to pull a Trumpism here.
Stop and figure out what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
Again, that doesn't mean you stop death. It just means you stop death at sea, right? You continue the deaths of people who would otherwise flee in places like Libya.
But if
and
you
in
can't help
Algeria
those people
and in
anyways,
Niger.
like if you aren't helping those people in Europe anyways, you actually need to, it's like, you know, putting the mask on yourself.
You
before
can help
helping
them,
the
you let
person
them claim
beside you.
asylum.
No, but if you
You
have
can't
no
help them. Half
space,
of them
if
get
you
their
have
asylum
no
papers.
resources to help asylum seekers, because you have
The
taken in so many
resources.
people without
Of
actual
course.
claim, and you're trying to help these people who are living
Right now, she's like, you are just completely collapsing into great replacement shit, you know? Where it's like, well, we just don't have the resources. There's going to be too many of them. They're going to come over here. They're not trained. They don't speak the language. They have different cultures. They're very, very scary. I don't want them all here, okay? We have to stop that.
on your streets who have nothing to do, who have nothing to eat. If your systems are overwhelmed, you can't help anyone. And that is
But
what's
Europe is
happening
not
right now.
overwhelmed by refugees. Barely any portions of the refugees came to Europe. Europe is not. Europe is a pretty rich country. You can process refugees.
Europe is a rich country. Sorry, I'm just teasing.
We're a rich continent,
but
I'm sorry.
I'm teasing. But let's see, like even Merkel herself, who was super pro-refugee policy, was like,
That
this
was
is
LonerBox's
Let
only
me
little
see.
slip up.
Well, Merkel was saying that since 2010. She's always
Yes.
pandered.
No,
to
not since
immigration.
2010. Since
2010 was her multiculturalism has failed speech. I'm just looking up Christmas Island right now. Someone died, like an Iranian refugee, died after the government recognized he was a refugee in Christmas Island.
How did he
And there was a
die?
riot. That's fucking.
Oh, there was a riot. It doesn't.
Riots that
Once
followed.
again, these riots happen every day at the camps in Europe. Every day. I was barely allowed into Calais because they were like, they might just kill you. It's lawless in there.
What were you saying about crime as well? Like, don't like refugees and migrants commit less crime than locals?
No, that is.
I think unless you don't adjust for age because they're younger and younger people commit more crime.
No, they migrants commit more crime. Absolutely.
When you don't adjust for age, right?
illegals, of course. When we're talking about actually accepting refugees,
Classic.
I reckon they wouldn't commit much crime.
Classic.
I agree with you there. But no, illegal migrants in France, it's like disastrous there at the moment.
But again, when you're talking about refugees, it's refugees who come across the sea, right? Like that's part of the people who become accepted as refugees.
The small percentage that are accepted out of the.
What small percentage? You said it was.
You haven't
like,
given
the
me the
only thing that
data of
happened-
people that
Annoyed.
come over the sea, just people who apply. And I don't doubt that, you know, even the fact that only
does-
half
what
of the
difference
people
does
that
coming over
actually
sea make if
apply,
you come
so
to-
half of the people that are applying are faking it, like that's pretty shocking in itself.
Again, well, that's because some countries consider Libya a safe port and then deport them, so that's kind of a problem as well, because Libya is definitely not a safe port. But so you'd actually expect the accepted claims to be higher. I'm just wondering, like, Generation Identity's mission
Okay.
was to be a rescue mission and send them to Libya. Do you agree with that or not?
I'd have to go back and look
No.
at the policy at the time. I genuinely would. Because if the policy at the time was that that was considered a safe port and that that was the maritime
Libya
law,
wasn't-
then yes.
Lib-
If that was not the maritime law at the time and it was not considered a safe port at the time, then no, because that wouldn't be against maritime law. As I've said, my support is for migration and maritime law and what nations have done since the dawn of time, no matter who they are in any country. You go to anywhere in the world, China, even African countries, Mexico,
How long
you
have I
ask
been
people
streaming?
what
About
they think
4
about
hours?
illegal migrants in their country, and they'll be pissed off. I know, because I've gone, even in Mexico, I've been there, and they're like, oh, you know, illegal migrants coming through here, it's really irritating. When I was in Turkey, same thing. They're like, these traffickers come in and these people, they rob us. And like, it's a really, I know people don't like to hear that because there's this weird perception that everyone who migrates or everyone who comes across the sea is like this perfect angel, but that's just not the reality. And in fact, this policy of just
A lot of
let
them are
everyone in
scary.
without checks and balances really hurts actual
Did I ever say
refugees
no checks and
and
balances?
And yeah, so like one of the big reasons I keep reverting back to the Great Replacement and that fear that eventually there's going to be cultures coming over here to replace us being, of course, the naturalized born citizens, even if you take the whole white supremacist angle out of it. That's a very popular Tucker Carlson talking point right now. And very often he uses it in terms of like, well, they're coming over here and they're going to vote Democratic, and or there's other problems, and or they have different cultures than us proper Judeo-Christian good folks, right? That kind of idea. You can see her wanting to revert to those talking points, similar talking points about immigrants. And if they come over here, I mean, they're not perfect. They're not angels, okay? A lot of them are big, strong men. They're going to come over here and they commit crime and they're violent, and that's why France is in such a terrible way. And then if you're like, well, if you correct for the age, typically no. Like that myth that there's just this wave of incredibly dangerous immigrants coming into your country, and that's been a tried and tested conservative talking point for a long time. One in which it'll enrage you and infuriate you. You're like, oh, God damn it. They're coming here and they're going to take our jobs and have their way with us.
Migrants too, who are living in camps with violent criminals who are trying to escape their home country under the current open borders, basically open borders policies happening now. No, you didn't say checks and balances, but you haven't really explained how your checks and balances are taking place other than deport everyone who doesn't have a legitimate migration claim, which doesn't make sense when they've all destroyed their identification.
Well, that's why, again, like the UN law is that you assist people who don't have travel documents, and you find a way. There can be paths to citizenship as well. But again, Libya was in civil war when Generation Identities bring them back to Libya mission.
Like I said, I'll go look into that.
That's such a crucial part of it. You find a way, as in, yeah, because ultimately I don't want human beings to die, so we should make this system work. I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm saying it could be much better, but I don't want to just shut the whole doors thing and have people die in the ocean. That's the alternative, or just turn them away and have them die in their home countries. I'm trying to save human beings, almost as if human beings were naturally equal, and it doesn't really matter depending on where you were born inside an imaginary line, right? Should it come down to that?
Policy on that. We will set a chat after I finished your video, and I've looked up the Libyan policy at the time and the EU policy and Italian policy. But yeah, I just, like my friend, I don't know your policy of just, you know, send them back on airplanes. Like, first of all,
I don't think they should. Okay, again, like but that's for people who fail their claims and have, like, we know where they're from and they're not from a country that you should be fleeing. So, but again, like, there is a question that can be asked about the people who arrive, but I think, like, sending people back to Libya is just not an option.
But then your migration policy becomes anyone can come in until we can prove that they don't belong here, which is no sane country's immigration policy, because it doesn't work.
Again,
we have to, even if you have no identification, nothing, we have to sit here and figure out a way to prove that you aren't a refugee who we should pay all of your wages, pay you to live here, like, support you, give you language courses. That country will collapse with that policy. Any country with that policy.
Well, again, that's why the first safe country is kind of useless, because if people have, like, a language that they can speak in a different country, then they should probably go there. Like, if you're a Syrian and your second language is English, you probably shouldn't be living in Hungary or Turkey. Like, you should probably go to like the UK or something. So yeah, I'm fine with that again, because we take it, like, again, like most of these countries as well take in barely any refugees. The UK has had less than 40,000 since the crisis started. So that's like less than 10,000 a year, isn't it? It's really low anyway. I can't remember the exact number. And we have a labor shortage. So
let me see.
This whole thing about a continent being full, like one of the richest continents. Someone in chat is saying 40,000, that's huge. Like, yeah, this is just, like, how do you justify that? What the fuck?
According to UN statistics, at the end of 2020, the UK had accepted 132,000 refugees with 80,000 pending asylum cases.
Yeah, since when was this?
That was 2020.
No, in the year they received 26,000 asylum applications over the same period. So this would be since somewhere. So at the end there were.
I'm checking right now the actual document. How many?
You're probably right. I probably checked the 40,000 from a while ago, but again, it's still low. Even 200,000 over that period is low.
How many dependents do you want? Because you realize asylum seekers are dependent, and like they should be.
Of
course, if you are fleeing a country from war, and you, in a lot of cases, sometimes can't speak the language, you have no ability to set your feet. Some people will be single mothers fleeing. That can't work. They're going to be dependent.
And again, the process in the UK is supposed to be 6 months. I think that's the average.
UK had about 30,000-ish, same as Finland.
The problem is that there's a work ban.
Like I said, at this point, there's nothing left in terms of her having to be able to like it is utterly indefensible unless you are completely fine with thinking that there is a difference between classes of humans or societies, right? In that, like, well, people think these people are angels. They're not. I'm not trying to say, I'm not passing judgment upon them. That would be kind of gauche. But I am going to say right now that it's dangerous. They come over here. They're a burden. We can't financially support them. They need training. It's a disaster.
Lifted. I think they should be allowed to work straight away. So yeah, I agree. Yeah. I agree that they should be utilized as workers because they're good for that.
Oh, yeah, I think your numbers are a bit low for the UK. I'll have to...
Yeah, they probably are. But again, like, it's still, like, the numbers that we take are still low. Even when I'm looking at this, like, with receiving 26,000 applications in 2021, that's quite low for a year.
I just don't know if I agree with that.
And they do want to work. Like, that's quite typical of refugees. Like, they do work. I don't think there's many, like... I don't really know the rates of, like, refugees who get accepted and then claim welfare. I've never heard that. Even right-wingers have never mentioned that as a trend.
What? Of course, well, of course they get assistance initially. Of course, like that makes sense.
Yeah, they get
if you are a
assistance,
refugee,
yeah.
well, yeah, so you don't have to claim welfare because you're getting assistance as an asylum seeker initially.
Yeah, but well, the assistance is only 6 months, and the assistance in the UK it's £5.64 for food, so it's quite low.
Yeah, it looks like we'll have to. I'm gonna get those UK rates as well. Also, how much did you say?
They get £5.64 a day for food, sanitation, and clothing.
That all of this sounds sus. How much?
This is from your source. This is from the same UNHCR UK.
Oh my God.
I love how many times that happens.
£5.64 a day for food. That sounds
This is your own source.
Refugees.
No, that does sound sus. Unless they're feeding them as well. Like what?
No, I said for food. I said for food.
Okay, asylum support.
So you
get
housing,
£40 for each person per household. I'm on the UK Gov website now.
Yeah, $39.63 per week per person, which makes $5.64 a day for food, sanitation, and clothing.
$5.64 a day for food, sanitation, and clothing.
UK.gov.
Just think of that for 2 seconds. Obviously, difference in economic scale for sure. Could I live here for $5 a day for food, clothing? I wonder. You could get 3 Mr. Noodles packs, so $3 gone. Got $2 left. You could get 1 clothing item per day at the dollar store, I guess. So like 1 sock. And then maybe a toothbrush first day. Yeah, it's not enough to live on. It's abysmal.
What you'll get, you can ask for somewhere to live, a cash allowance, or both as an asylum seeker. House, you'll be given somewhere to live if you need. This could be in a flat, a house, a hostel.
Oh, sorry, per week.
You cannot choose where you live. Cash support, you'll get £40 for each person in your household. This will help you pay for things you need like food, clothing, and toiletries. Your allowance will be loaded onto a debit card. Each week, you'll be able to use the card to get cash from a cash machine. If you've been refused asylum, you'll still be given the payment card for food, clothing, and toiletries and somewhere to live. If you're a pregnant mother, you get an extra £3 per week. That's actually not great, is it?
No, it's
someone
not.
in the chat is reeing about housing. It's usually hard to let properties that the council tenants don't want to live in. So yeah, that's unfortunately that is a problem where we have like empty council houses in the UK that people don't want to live in.
It's kind of inhumane,
okay,
isn't it?
I'm gonna have to look into these actual stats and how much it costs to live in the UK.
I guess it would be really brutal if you're on a boat screaming no more illegal immigration at these people.
Why did it surprise me? £5 a day? Because £5 a day, yeah, that's why I don't actually think that can't possibly be the actual number people are being given if they have been granted asylum.
No, I said when they're applying. I said if you're granted asylum, then you just get to work and you're
in the country.
Okay, I'll have to look more into this data, obviously.
So this isn't welfare, but yeah, so again, yeah. So when you're claiming asylum, when they're vetting you, you get £5.64 a day for food, sanitation, and clothing. Why is that? Yeah.
Well, you get free, like you said, you get housing.
Yeah, you get housing. I know it's not terrible, right? Yeah, okay, yeah.
No, like I said, there would have to be.
Well, housing though.
Why would it have to be? I've lived off
why don't they live under the bridge? It's like, okay, there's a whole bunch of Haitian refugees. No, deport them all.
Let me see. Do you get? Sorry, I'm just doing some reading.
Okay, I'm just gonna wait for someone in chat to say something funny. Someone said I have an amateur style. That is true. I'm not a public speaker.
I'm enjoying talking to you, though. I know a lot of my chat will probably hate you, and you know what? You were a bit of a cunt in your video, if I'm being honest. But I'm enjoying talking to you.
But you were making cunty claims.
Excuse me, your claim that I made up my entire Panos interview was grappling at straws.
I didn't.
You were basically trying to assert it was like some.
I said that you made up and you exaggerated the lead up, which I think is true. I can't prove it, but you know.
I know you can't.
And I definitely don't think the lawyer admitted to money laundering to a pair of strangers. But
absolutely did. I don't know.
Did you send it to the police then?
We did actually.
Yeah. Did you see that? Like, well, you've seen that part of the video, right? Or have you only watched whatever you?
No, I've never watched my video. Oh, you mean your video? I watched that bit. Whatever we watched on the stream. Yeah, I think I watched a tiny bit past that where you mentioned
have you been charges. I'm just interested. Did you be able to find anything about Panos like after 2018? Because
it's really hard to find
articles on him.
It's like shocking. Hey, I know. I was looking up. All I could find was the two, which I find really tragic, is the two younger ERCI kids that are being charged, but not Panos, who was in control of the whole thing. For some reason, Panos' stuff disappeared, but the two kids are on trial for ERCI.
Well, it's because the money laundering charge was linked to their fundraising campaign. So Panos is actually implicated in that because it's his NGO. They raised funds for him.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was those two. And that's why, because I think the latest I found was Amnesty International did a review of the case in 2020. And they said that the investigation into those two people's bank accounts didn't uncover any wrongdoing. So that's in 2020 so far. They haven't uncovered any wrongdoing.
The case is still ongoing. That's the only thing I could find. And apparently, and this doesn't surprise me because this was something that Ariel had kind of hinted at, was using like military radios and military plates to get into restricted areas to pick up these migrants and kind of collude and find out where they were illegally. That was one of the charges on them. They're claiming that it was a completely legal radio and they were just like able to get on military channels legally. So that's the claim. So we'll see what
is she charged?
Goes into that. Yeah, she is. Yeah.
I'm just skimming some stuff on her now. She got a lot of death threats after that video.
Who did?
Ariel.
Did she? If that's true, I don't support that. But
yeah,
did she actually? Like,
yeah, apparently. I think
so many people like make that up 24/7. It's hard to believe. It's like DGG sent me death threats. Here's these fake screenshots. So
I don't know, right? When a bunch of Nazis like raid my Discord, that used to happen when I made like more alt-righty videos, and they never target me. They never DM me. They never at me. They always at the people in my server with female profile pictures.
Oh, gotta get the
They come into my Discord to attack women. It's really weird. And I just got left alone.
All right, so I'm finding a few bits of information that are saying it's higher. So I'm gonna have to sit here and be boring after this stream and look into all the information on migrant housing and benefits. I wouldn't be surprised if there was also I'll just say this honestly, my chat's gonna but I actually, when I was a youngin', I did volunteering with refugees in Canada and asylum seekers, and we went out and did shops for them and helped them cook food and stuff. So there was a lot of private support.
Why would your chat be upset at you doing something kind for other people?
I hope at least that it was mixed with that, if that is the case for genuine asylum seekers.
If that's even the truth, why would they be like, gross?
As the chat certainly know, the media make pretty shocking claims.
But you taught us they're garbage people.
Well, this source is from the
Why do you help the garbage people?
Right. And I'm going to look into if there are compounding factors to that, if there is food given to them as well on top of that. This does say that, sorry, I'm opening.
I mean, I'm not making like a massive moral claim about the money. I was just interested that it surprised you so much. They can probably go to
food. Of course, because I've lived in the UK and £5 is not much, obviously.
It's not much for food.
No, it's not much for food at all.
And sanitation and clothing. So
no, of course not. Yeah, which is why I want to look into it and see if there's like extras given to them, if there's actual food given to them as well.
Of course, I need to find out how much are we giving these filthy cretins.
I guess AIDS t-shirts would be cheap. That's right, fun.
Yeah, no, because I've gone to a few of these places and they have had like the trucks outside distributing things. Certainly in the UK, because we were going to do a video interviewing people in the UK.
I saw them like receiving items, more than $5 worth of items.
But if that is true, if it is that they only get £5 and they are legitimate asylum seekers that have like gotten status and everything, that's messed up. If it's just people that have applied and it's a bunch of people that have just came in on boats and they have no idea, I can see how it could be difficult to support. I think they've got like nearly, at one point it was like 800 to 1,000 coming in per day. I could see how that would be a really difficult system to support and why they would have to decrease the amount they're giving to people. Still, even just housing those people would be really challenging. Can you at least acknowledge that?
What, if it's how many people a year?
It was 800 people per day coming over the channel.
Yeah, of course that would be challenging. But again, there's a surprising amount of empty housing in the UK. And again, it's like the sooner that these people get processed and something's decided with them, the sooner they are allowed to work and actually pay their own way, the better. So.
True.
Yeah, but again, like this whole thing about legitimate asylum seekers as well, like you're either an asylum seeker or you're not. You either claim asylum or you don't. So again, it's like everyone who claims asylum is a legitimate asylum seeker. It's just whether or not they get accepted.
Well, no, like even the UK website here with their pittance that they're giving admit, like even if you have no claim to asylum, you still get paid.
Yeah, because you have to be here whilst you're claiming asylum. Which is why I think the work ban should be lifted. I think if you're coming over saying you want to work, you should work, yeah.
Agreed.
We have a labour shortage in the UK, so Brexit and all.
I mean, that is a whole different conversation about creating an immigrant slave class that we could have. It's bad here.
No, they should get paid. No, they should get paid for their work, obviously. Like,
will they? As in, do you really think that, like, right?
No, they're just citizens. They just like you. Why would we inherently exploit their labor that way? Why would we turn them into slaves? Why not just let them be people? Why would your mind go there?
Now, anyone who's paid minimum wage is a recent migrant here in Canada, and it's literally like a class system.
What, as in like they're underpaid? Or
as in they are all the lowest paid workers in a country, and migration is typically supported because they know these people will just work low-paying jobs. But I mean, that's a whole different conversation for another day.
I know, it sounds like we need immigrant unions to join with the local unions. That would be nice. But,
all right, we can get to terrorism, immigrant unions, and let me look into these actual Libyan laws. I've got my notes here. We've got Libyan laws. We've got the UK rates. Actually, that's... Oh,
So, like I told y'all, just wild. LonerBox is, I guess, the new face of Twitch Debato Bros. He has ascended. He is now the most powerful one. Greater than any of the ones that came before. Destiny, Vosh, all the Vosh number 2s and 3s and Destinies 4s and 5s, the clones, the many clones that appear everywhere. No. Even the next generation of extremely alpha men, the pickup artists, you know, the MLs, even them, they cower in comparison to LonerBox. LonerBox has ascended. He's the greatest of all time, the GOAT, as it were. And he doesn't even know it. He doesn't know it. That's the most wonderful thing. He doesn't even think this is happening. He's just dominating, just crushing everyone. But it was really good. But did he get called a bitch boy? True. I'm gonna have that title for life. For life, I tell you. For life. Hey, do you like movies? Do you like Serfs? Do you want movies and Serfs watching the movies? So then come over to the new channels. It's the Serfs Cinema. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Can you do the thing, you know, that thumbs up and comment and all those things that help us out in the algorithm that controls every aspect of our lives? Also, if you happen to have a Facebook account, can you delete it? Like just delete it. You should probably delete your Facebook account because it's not a great company. But hey, if you can't do that for whatever reason, I understand. And could you also go to facebook.com/thesurftimes then and give us a little like and a follow. We're just trying to push back against the fact that people like Ben Shapiro happen to dominate the platform entirely. And when everyone asks why do older generations believe the things they believe, one of the problems is the majority of them on social media use Facebook. So to counter that, we're just going to be on there too now. Also, if you happen to have a union or a worker co-op or even a leftist project, podcast, website, Zoom, MySpace, it doesn't matter. We will advertise it for free on this channel. All you got to do is go to weareserfs.com and use the forms that we got there, weareserfs.com. Thanks, everybody.
To our gods, Xander Corvus and Peyton L. Just, may you shower us mortals with gifts from the heaven. To our monarch, Tom Spiker, we are your humble jesters, clowning around for your amusement. To our lord, Trevor R. and Alexander Thaler, we give you our thanks for this meager land for us to toil our seed. To our knights of the round table, Egbard Sealine, Matthew Scarborough, Stellar Vision, Ariana McCarthy, Daniel Sutton, Ants Are Still Running the World, Coulter Smith, Tom Grow, Val 9000, Jenna Tal, Dark Puppy, Quiet 185, Anna Loves Riley, Omni, Riley and Anna, Poodlehawk, the Tim Caucus, Multimondi, Trevor Janis, Lemmy 101, Anthropophojak, Saren 42, Chronic de Hemphog, Catherine, Radical Maniac, Ramon Acosta, Incosin, Violent Orchard, Sophie Baby, Political Puppy, Andreas Chiringuito, Zach Christensen, Josh Mickelson, Todd Buckingham, and Todd Lajeunesse. We raise our glasses and we salute you, our comrades.